You're going to have tough leaders. You just have to know what are their shortcomings and learn how to work with them, help them to move up, because that will move you up.
Hi, I am Sophie and this is the Rise and Play podcast. In the show, I sit down with influential thought leaders of the gaming industry to deconstruct how they create the best team and company cultures in order to create the best games. Every episode brings actionable insight to improve your leadership, self-awareness, and emotional management skills. Because becoming a better leader starts with becoming a better human. So, are you ready to unlock your full potential in life and business? Let's begin. So, welcome in my home, because today we had technical issues to record our regular podcast with Miska, but thankfully we are two podcasters, so we have backup solutions. So here we are in my office space. Welcome. Miska, how do you feel about the setup today?
So first of all, we didn't have a technical problem. We had Miska problem, which is I forgot the microphone setup. That we normally use. Normally, we've done it once that we used before, and I forgot it. So we went to Sophie's place and built you built the most ghetto setup you can find for a podcast. But it's fine. Nobody's watching, and those couple of hundred people who are, we're sorry. But for those listening, I think the sound quality is much better than the last time. So that was a lot of the feedback. So yeah, thanks for having me in your home.
Yeah, for sure. We wanted to continue this podcast recording or video recording because we have a lot going on at Savage Games and with a lot of things we are talking about with Miska, and we thought it would be maybe helpful also to share those with the audience. So one topic we wanted to focus on today is managing upwards, which is a whole thing by itself, because we always think as leaders, when we talk about management, that we manage reports, we manage on the side, we manage stakeholders, so we're on top of the hill and we manage people who are reporting to us. Truth is, and I learned this the hard way, which I'll be able to share in further conversation, that managing upward is as important as managing a team. And Miska, I also learned actually also from you since I started at Savage, because we do need to work. We need to report to many people here at Savage Games. We joined PlayStation Studio, and how do we do this in a clever way and as well, a professional way? So I'd like to start my first question, what has been your experience managing upwards? Have you always thought it was important from the beginning, or was it a journey for you to understand that it was a thing by itself?
Yeah. So of course I'm going to answer this by not answering your question because I'm going to kind of zoom out a little bit and talk about managing up and what it really means. Because in the sense, what managing up is managing a relationship with a person above you. And I'm standing right next to your book. What is this, book shelter?
Yes, bookshelf.
Bookshelf, and it's filled with all kinds of books of learnings of stoicism and leadership. And I bet that you don't have a single book that would tell you how to be a great subordinate. And the reason being because there's not that many, and that really is the whole thing of managing up, is building the relationship by being a good subordinate, a good team player for that person. And first time when I was taught about managing up was actually in the army. And there, when we went through the officer school, the one thing that we were told multiple times over and over again is to be a good leader, you got to be a good follower. And this is kind of like the setup. So what was your original question? It's what have I learned during the PlayStation?
No, actually you answered it by not trying to answer it. Yeah. So we have a way of communication. Yeah. Because I was asking the origin of how was your first time that you realized that managing upwards was important, and you have answered it where you've learned this military, right, training. Yeah. So how old were you when that happened?
19
okay.
when went through the officer school. So did it 1 year in military. It's pretty typical in Finland, and then you did a different type of training. So I did actually the officer training, which was a little bit longer. But yeah, there's a lot of leadership training in that, and people who have been in military or have military have people who they know that work in military. It's not like in the movies. You just don't tell people what to do. I mean, there's part of that, but most of it is communication. It's a huge organization with dire consequences. So the communication is a really important part. managing up is an important element of it. And that's what I learned the first time, but really then you kind of forget. You go to the university and then you just manage your drinking, and that is basically what you do for the next 5 years. But then you go back to the work life, and that's where you start managing up, because seldom you're hired as a manager with nobody above you. You always have somebody above you. So that's where building that relationship with your manager becomes really important. And as we move forward, I just wanted to point one thing is that for some reason there's this notion which I find quite selfish, in the sense that people perceive that the manager is always the wrong and they are always the right, and they need to change the manager rather than changing themselves, which is very, very selfish way of thinking. And I think we're going to dive deeper here in how you can succeed in your career no matter who your manager is.
Yeah. A few points of reflection here. There are not so many books about how to be a good subordinate. And it's already like a starting point of conversation. And why is that? It's like, it's not cool to be a subordinate. Like, in no one's stories, like, no one wants to feel like a subordinate. The reason why we are maybe thriving to go in position of maybe more influence and power is just to not have to report to anybody, or that's the false belief. So I think here there's a point of understanding where is the myth or misaligned reality about not having to be a subordinate somewhere. And like you said, you are always a subordinate to someone, that you have always someone to report to at the end of the day. Before we get a bit further in detail, like how do we manage this, I want to challenge here. Well, you know the theory in military training. How did that work out for you during your history, professional history, and what were the learnings you get from this knowing how to manage a wars well or not so well the hard way, and what were the key learnings, if you have like one or two on top of your
there are many things about that I remember where I wasn't that good, and those kind of like haunt me and push me to do better. And in that sense, like being a leader in military so early on gave amazing like first time failures in many things that I've since then focused on fixing. I'm by no means done, and by no means, by the way, we're not doing this podcast because I'm such an amazing upward manager. So this is just theoretical and learnings from what I've read and from what I've experienced as well. So military it gave me a lot of mistakes early on, and I did way more mistakes than anybody else by the time that they get the management position. So that was important. And if I have to take some of the elements that I always remember from there, so of course one is to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower. So that means like you need to support the people above you. And the second one was, I mean, this is nothing new, but lead by example. Like those were really, really important in military. Like you always have to be, I was serving in infantry, and you always have to be the first. Like you command people to move, you move. You want people to do something, you do that thing. And the third thing was time management. So in the officer schools, like it's always like they would ask you, how long does it take? And you would give a time, and they would be with the time with you, and they would watch you fail because you don't know how long things actually take. So it's like teaches you to set example, to manage up, and to manage time, meaning manage expectations.
That's already a good structure to what it means concretely to manage upwards, right? So let's get into the detail of like concretely what it means when everybody here somewhere has a boss, right? And most difficult case, because that's easy to maybe talk about managing upwards when you are getting along with your boss and you have like aligned goals, but by nature of how an organization is made, sometimes you will have conflict, you know, of goals where you're pulling one direction and your boss is going in another direction, although high level goals you're going toward the same direction. So let's start from this point where you think with your current goal as a team member, as a manager, where you should be going with your team or as a company, but your boss believes they should be going in another direction to hit the high level goals. And this will affect your work, right? This is like one situation I see. What would you advise, for example, to approach this scenario when you have the misalignment on the how to get there?
So I think so. In order to the way I'm really bad at answering questions because I just redefine the questions all the time. Probably bad at managing up because of that. But here there's different types of managers, and it's really important to understand what type of a manager you have. So the way you're describing the manager, like, okay, you have a manager who's kind of like going into a different direction, and that is a problematic, and that puts you in a difficult situation. So I would describe, and then there's actually a book called Managing Up, maybe, or something like that. But we're talking about a person that is very much a climber or a advancer, or how you put that, like a go-getter in an organization. And those type of people are very solution-oriented. So how do you work with that type of person? Well, you need to know that all they're interested in is that you have to be providing them with different solutions. And also, because they are always focusing on advancement, they want to be that type of leader. They also want you to give many solutions so that they can pick one. And then, so now you're talking about you're having a situation where that person is leading towards a certain way. So, okay, your leader wants to go to a certain place, and you, as a member of that team, needs to figure out multiple ways probably to offer that leader to go there. We can go here, but it would mean, we can go this way, but it would mean this, this, and that. Or we can go that way, and it would mean this, this, and this. And then there's the third way that could actually mean this, this, and that. What do you think we should be going? Because you clearly, like you described a person who's an advancer, right?
I think so. I didn't just have a language or structure to categorize, and I think it's good where you bring like the learnings or the theory from the book to put structure, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, in that case, I would say an advancer where, you have a person who wants to advance with the goals that they were given. So I give a concrete here example where, you have a studio director and you are a senior product manager, and you are convinced like the way to go is maybe a better way because you have all the information, but the studio director is like, no, this is what we should be chasing, and they're missing information, so they don't see that sometimes. And then you're trying to convince, and it's like, no, this is the way we have to go there, despite the disagreement. So those situations happen quite often when you are the specialist or the expert on the topic.
When you're trying to bring, I usually try to understand how my manager thinks and operates. So that takes me the longest time is to find that way, so that is for me to better support that. So there's the advancers who are very much thinking about their career ahead and the moves they need to make to succeed. We know all those people. They tend to be quite successful. That's why they are leaders in the companies, and that's why they move up the organization ladder. And these type of people, like, listen, they don't like complainers either. Like you go there, you say, hey, no, too hard, too this. They're like, done, next one. I can't have people complaining. I'm going here. You need to give me solutions on how to get there. That's how you work with that type of person, and it's a different type of relationship. And then if you're talking about a person who's there's like an introverted leaders as well. Those who don't share actually much. They're kind of like quiet on the kind of like thinking and so forth. So those are quite difficult people to go to interact with. But then again, you're just understanding how that type of a leader works. So in that type of a situation, you have to be proactive, because they are not coming to you. They're not the extroverted leaders that are walking around being friends of everybody, want everybody to think out loud. Hey, let's talk about it. They're on the contrary. They don't want to say anything. They're very stoic, very much listening. So in those type of situation, if that's, again, you feel that we're going towards different direction and that person is only in their own head, be proactive, but don't be chatty. They're not chatty. You shouldn't be chatty either. Very proactive, very down to the details. Here it is. I want to give you this information, and I know that that person will go back and think about it and change their mind.
So you mentioned advancer, introvert.
Yeah, extrovert.
And then extrovert. So extrovert, like the chatty.
Yeah.
Are there other types that are categorized?
Well, with extroverts. So extroverts, I might be an extrovert leader. So chatty cats. like to talk. They like subordinates who listen and nod a lot. They like
well noted.
yeah. They like people who think out loud because they think out loud and they feel that that it's better. So if you're the type of person who's reserved or don't want to speak up or is stressed about things being talked about that are not finished, then you have to change your mindset, because that's the way the leader goes. And I believe in that way, and I think that's the most constructive way. Instead of trying to change your manager, try to change your approach. Understand how they like to work, and work with them. That's how sports team works as well. Like you don't come in and say like your coach wants to play this type of playbook. You're like, nah, I don't do that. That's not my playbook. Guess what? You're not on the team then.
Yeah. So to summarize, and it's interesting as well. Thanks for. I was about to ask, but you answered which type of leader you would be, and I think I'm definitely more an advancer.
Yeah.
For also the limitation and where I have found difficult for me and for the report to work in a certain way, like this complaining attitude or like a bit helpless, which is not bad, but it's maybe not the right angle to have a conversation for what do you care about as a leader. So.
But do you know that people think that you are not an advancer? That would say the perception of you would be that you are more of a harmonizer type of a leader that wants no chaos, no interpersonal drama. Everybody's liking everybody. Kind of setting up this type of a utopian. It's more important that everybody's happy and well than we hit their target. You have those type of leaders as well. Culture above everything. It's most important, and good things will breed out of this type of setting. I'm not sending in a condescending way, but that there are those type of leaders. And again, with those type of leaders, then you know that you don't go to a harmonizer type of leader to ask them or to sort people problems. They don't want that. No. I don't want any people problems. You talk with yourselves and let's all be happy and all good here. So
is that the fourth category as well, harmonizer?
It is those type of leaders. Of course, not one leader is only strongly that type, but I know very, very successful big time CEOs who are harmonizers, and you wouldn't think about them by outward perspective, but they are. For them, the culture, the outward image of the company. What is being said are really important, and they do not want to deal with drama. Like no drama. And you know that you don't go to that person to talk about drama.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think here anyway, this comes from it's a lens to look at it with different personality types, right? Because harmonizer is a different type of personality.
But I'm going to ask you one thing, so sorry for cutting off, but you've probably worked with micromanagers. That's the most typical one that people talk about. He's a micromanager. So how would you work with a micromanager, boss?
I'd have to remember how far ago, because it hasn't happened recently. This is I don't know how I would.
So let's approach from this. Why are they micromanagers?
Well, I would look at it with trying to have empathy. I think those conversations where we're having a lot of empathy for our reports or people we work with, we are not applying the same level of empathy for a manager upwards. I think here that's the whole point, right? We try to understand. So trying to be in the shoes of a micromanager, I would see someone who's really stressed, like high goals, high ambition, stretch goals, and not feeling in control. And it's important for them to feel in control. So being informed about everything that is happening, so to have security that the goals are happening.
Yes.
It could also reveal that there's a lack of trust either in me as the report or a lack of trust in general in others, which is not...
Fear of failure.
Yeah. I mean, of course, behind control, there's fear of many things, right? Fear of being judged, fear of failure, around that.
Absolutely correct. How would you work with that manager? Those are all correct points. How would you build trust?
Well, if it's important to have guarantee that things will go all right, which is never a guarantee, of course, and also with this image to be kept intact, I would focus the first part on informing, so giving all the information, because that gives us control. You are aware about everything. Yeah. Something else I have learned as well through, now that I can remember, dealing with people who are, I don't want to call them micromanager because it's not a choice, but who need control. I could be reassuring. Sometimes actually this is where you can manage the words, like, I'm confident we can reach this goal. I don't know if we will. Yeah. I'm not promising something, but I feel confident that I can deliver on this like really ambitious goal. I think we can do it, and then we get the energy you have from you to have this confidence, like everything is going to be all right because I trust this person, and they seem to know what they're doing.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right with what worries them, and you said the most important part is communication, and that is really how you build trust with a micromanager, because they're afraid of failure, and that's why they have to look at every point what's happening, and if you over communicate, like, this is what I did today, daily reports, all of that, what will happen is you'll build trust really quickly, and that person will not need those type of roles. They know, okay, Sophie's on the ball. Like, I know exactly what she's doing. I'm constantly on the ball. Like, she's informing me with everything. I trust her. And that's really how you build. It's actually one of the easiest way to work with a micromanager. Like, that's the easiest boss to work with almost. So when people complain about micromanager, I'm like, wow, that's peanuts. That's like level 1 of like challenging managers. But the most difficult one would be probably a narcissist.
Wow, that's a hard one to spot as well.
Yeah.
How do you spot a narcissist?
Whether I have worked with one or not, I'm not going to talk about that. But a narcissist is impossible to spot, because the narcissist is the type of manager that when you interview them, you'll be like, I want to work with this person. Amazing. Like, I would give my right hand. I would learn so much from this person. Their experience is so strong, and everything about them is so great. But what you will notice really quickly with the narcissist managers is that they are on a never-ending power trip. And what happens with these type of managers is you have to basically caress their ego all the time. You can't conflict with them directly. You have to be very careful in how do you present these different facts or different things about the organization. Now everybody thinking like, oh my God, I would never work with a narcissist. Do you mean like Steve Jobs? Or I'm not saying he was a narcissist, but I read the book, sounds like it. Elon Musk, maybe, kind of all of that. And so that's where it comes in. It's like, yes, they are narcissist leaders, and we consider that the worst thing. But if you work with a narcissist well, that could be pretty much a jet engine you're tied to. So they can go pretty far. And sadly, these type of people actually move probably the best through the organizations. They're so great at selling what they do, and they're and they can bring quite of a strong team just with their charisma.
Interesting. Yeah, it's
and I'm not saying anybody here to just like work with people with personality disorders, but there's a payoff.
Yeah,
if you're ready to do that payoff, it can be extremely valuable.
I think like let's switch here about payoff exactly, because while we are providing here like some structure, so we did mention different categories. So we are, as leaders, we always use empathy to understand who we're talking to. So applying this to our own managers, and no one's wrong in the category. It's different style, sometimes different context. Then also like some tools we talked about, like communication, like how to deal, how to mirror basically. I think it's more mirroring as well in the behavior. There's one thing that is blocking most of this, because again, the very great. I can speak for myself, and maybe you've been there in that place, when I don't always respect my manager, or I thought I didn't want to do any effort to adapt. And it's like, oh, I know how to get there, I just don't want to. And I think this is here the part you've been yourself there as well, where I'm going to quit this company because I just can't work with this person, or this is not understanding. And I actually endured it, I learned it a few years ago. where I learned to change my mindset, having a bit more empathy and understanding that I could stay in the company. Can you relate to that? How do you overcome that? It's an ego thing as well, right?
Yeah. I've made this mistake multiple times of not understanding. So I'm learning as I go. It's just like, that's what I mean. Is like when I say it's a selfish way of thinking so your cat agrees 100%. So it's a selfish way of thinking that you are on the right and everything needs to be perfect for you. If you constantly quit a job because you had a bad manager, which is the most common reason to quit, I don't think you're going to move too far. Even if you start your own company, you're going to have investors, you're going to have board members. They are essentially your managers. Are they going to be perfect? Probably not. Probably you'll have absent managers, which is quite typical of a forum as well. And you have incompetent managers, which are also two classes that we haven't talked about. But just understanding the payoff, super important.
Yeah.
Super, super important.
And it's not just about the payoff, because I think for myself, like as I grew to a more like senior management position, when you find yourself in the shoes, and then it's quite a lonely place, the higher you go, it feels lonely. And so high expectation on you, and you are relying on a team, and you don't always have confidence, right? So there's a lot going on, and actually what you need is support from your team. And it's stressful when you have to achieve sometimes ambitious goals, and you have a team or some people were not really supporting you, against you, and it creates even more stress. So something I have learned, being myself in those shoes, having empathy exactly for leaders, where, like you said, no one's perfect. And it's never about the person or who they are. It's a context, right? They have goals. It's a whole system. So again, it's not putting people in boxes forever, but they are there in a certain way for a certain reason. And when you have this empathy, it reduces the feeling of effort for the payoff, right? So it's like you want to work well with your manager to achieve also your own goals, personal, professional, but company goals.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, you brought in empathy multiple times. It's here's the mistake that I see a lot of like, we'll talk about game people. So a lot of game leaders make. I made the same thing, is that they lead through us versus them. It's the easiest way to lead. It's like our little game team against the big bad corporation where we're working. And what happens is that they're just isolating themselves. That's the worst upward management you can find. So you isolate yourself, you become this island, this rebel group, and it might sound really cool in the beginning as you rebel against the rest of the support organization and compete against other teams. But the moment you trip, the moment something doesn't go your way, and the early velocity starts slowing down from the prototyping phases and so forth, you're not going to get much help. And you're setting yourself up to failure unless you execute perfectly. And of course, a young leader will say, naturally, I'm going to execute perfectly because everybody around me is an idiot and this organization sucks. Or whatever. And because our team is the best team, all these things, I've said it to myself. But that's just an example of really bad upward management, and then just kind of like a junior mentality. And then going back and like sitting on the other side of the table now, being the manager, you get pretty thick skin. So I can honestly say that there's tremendous amount of I don't give a fuck in me, which is just healthy way of approaching. I don't need to please everybody. I don't need to be paraded. Thanked would be fun sometimes, but not necessary. I know what I'm doing, hopefully, and I'm paying it with my job. So that kind of builds the thick skin that allows you also to make the decisions that are sometimes hard decisions. But just like this approach of thinking that when you're a good leader, you're beloved. No, that's not how leadership works. We have many leaders who were not liked, and they did the right things. And we have a lot of leaders who are liked for a moment because they seemingly do the right thing to the people, but in long term, their decisions are destructive.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's always about thinking the long-term game, and people are of course a part of it, but it's not for people only, right? It's a business with financial nature, right? So it needs to keep running.
Yeah, and I just want people to understand that there's an opportunity with all kinds of leaders. There's not like, oh, I have a bad leader, that's why I'm leaving. There's opportunities to fail tremendously under different leaders. Like there's leaders, I'm not sure if you've ever worked with or know, who are quite absent. You know, they're all over the place. They're never at the office. Probably not that typical in game development, but in other type of organizations for sure. And in those type of situations, if you're expecting that leader to kind of mentor you and help you, you're not going to get it. But you can fail tremendously by mimicking that sort of a behavior where you're also going to cruise. You're not going to do much. And even though that leader might not punish you for it, your coworkers will know you as a lazy bastard because you mimicked the wrong leader. And that's a problematic thing. So sometimes when you have like an absentee leader, or if you have an incompetent leader, those are both really great situations to be in, because that allows you to rise up in the organization. With the absentee, the person's not here. She's not here. She's never here. Great. Now I can start running things. And I can just tell her like how things are going. Everybody will love it. You take the leadership position. Same thing if you have an incompetent leader. He or she doesn't know what they're doing. Just wrong decision after wrong decision, indecisiveness. Start helping. Start
coaching
really
upwards.
Coaching. Yeah, start moving. Start helping with making the right decisions. And guess what? You'll be the trusted person, and you'll be like, but why do I want to rise up under incompetent? Well, think about it in a larger setup. Why is this incompetent person leading? Probably because they have great connections. What's going to happen when you become their right-hand person? You're going to tap into those same connections. So in a many way, like I'm not trying to be a Machiavellian here of like selling upwards, but we're talking about your career and how you can succeed in different type of positions. They're not always where you come into an organization and it's this magical game company that you always wanted to work, and they sit you on the table and give you all the resources and going to coach you to become the best game maker you've ever been, and everybody will be nice to you and you will ship the best possible games. Sorry, never is going to happen. You're going to have tough leaders. You just have to know what are their shortcomings and learn how to work with them, help them to move up, because that will move you up.
So we really went the whole 360 on the topic, and let's wrap up as well on the theme. Is there something we haven't talked about that we should have talked about?
Plenty, but that's going to be in the future podcast episodes.
So let me summarize the points as well as a test for myself of how much I took away from your own learning. So I would say main takeaways don't feel stopped or blocked by the boss you're working with right now. It's not something you can change and feeling helpless and leave the company, because it's a wasted opportunity. I would say the main message here. And how to work with it is as you grow in your own skills, leadership skills, to again use empathy, trying to understand who's your audience, try to understand who's the audience of your own boss, right? So what is important for them, in those archetypes that we talked about, 4 types, so introvert, extrovert, I can think of, advancer and narcissist.
Yeah.
Less desired for the last one, but for others, helping them, because at the end of the day, human to human, we're trying to help each other achieve goals, right? We are here with our own mission. No one is, intentionally evil. Like your
Some
boss,
people are.
Yes, but here let's work with. Of course, if somebody really abuses you, you should just walk out.
Then you need to quit. We're not saying you always have to be there.
Yeah.
There are situations where you need to quit, especially if you're being associated with something that is really, really bad, and you don't want that to tarnish your name. Quit. But those are rare situations.
Yeah. So here we're talking about where it's not a perfect match, and it won't always be, because that's kind of how it is. But finding the tools for yourself and the structure to approach it, how to work the best as a collaborator with your manager.
Yeah. Yes. And just final note, when I understood the shortcomings of my managers, that's where I had the biggest gains in my career. That's where I was really able to rise up in my position and actually work the way I wanted to, by just understanding my manager. So seize the opportunity of your manager's forthcoming. Don't walk away from it. That's the stupidest thing you could do.
All right. Have I missed anything in our learnings?
No. I think the rant is over. Your cat wants me out. Thanks for listening.
And welcome to my office. Next time will be a different setup. Thanks, Miska.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thanks for listening to this latest episode of the Rise and Play podcast. I am trying to grow a community of conscious leaders across the industry and beyond. So if you want to join this movement, please share the podcast with other conscious leaders, because we have so much more we can learn from each other. Also, please don't forget to follow the show so you don't miss out on future content. Every episode is packed with actionable insights that will help you improve your leadership skills now. And if you are interested in learning more on the topics that we discussed today, you can find more insights on riseandplay.io, and there you will also find my free masterclass on conscious leadership. So, have a great week, and until the next time,